then there has to be a target.
Yeah, I was the target.
And you become the target. And we understand that's a risk, isn't it?
And then when you've done something like that before and a similar situation arises, and not just with that, but with anything, how people react then impacts your thought process in, am I going to do this again? Am I going to say something? Or am I just going to mind my own damn business?
We're picking up here right where we left off in the last episode. And if you have such a good friendship and relationship and you become aware of somebody cheating, somebody doing something dishonest, it puts you in this place of, do I say something?
Right.
Do I say nothing?
I remember years ago, many, many, many years ago, I had a person that I worked with, and we were friends. We weren't super close, but we were friends. And I had met her husband a couple times. And I saw her husband out on a date with a different woman. And I went through this whole thing. Do I say something? Do I not say something? What I want to know. I asked a couple of my friends, hey, if you saw somebody out, and I don't know their situation. I don't know if they're separated. I don't know if they're going through a divorce. She never said anything about it. Maybe they have an open marriage. I don't know. And I was like, is it my business? Is it not my business? But she always talked about him in such a respectful way, a kind way. And I thought, I should probably say something. And so it wasn't an immediate say something. It was a few weeks because I just didn't know what to do. She got so mad at me. Like it was me and it was my fault. She never spoke to me again. And they ended up getting divorced like 4 or 5 years later.
Wow.
It was really weird, but I was like, it wasn't me. I wasn't out on a date with him. I don't date married people. It was really weird. She was so mad at me. And I had asked someone else who was a mutual acquaintance, does she think it was me? She's like, no, she's just so mad at you that you would say something. And I said, should I have not said something? Like, if it was me, I'd want to know. And I certainly wouldn't persecute the person who told me. She was like, no, she just, that was something she did not want to know. She had a feeling about it, but she didn't want to know. I was like, all right.
So when you put yourself in a place of possibly being the one that pulls the wool back off of their eyes, then there has to be a target.
Yeah, I was the target.
And you become the target. And we understand that's a risk, isn't it?
Yeah.
It might have surprised us, might have surprised you, but it's a risk.
Yeah.
And so being aware of your values and being aware of the importance of abiding by those core ethics and values you have out of respect and consideration, there's a chance.
Yeah. I even said to her, I'm not saying this to hurt you. You might know, you might not know. This is information I feel like you should know. I saw your husband out with a woman at such and such place on such and such day. I didn't make any assumption. I didn't tell her what I saw. I didn't tell her anything that I assumed based on what I saw. I just said he was at this place with this person at this time. They could have just been friends for all I knew, but based on what I saw, I did not think that was the case. But I didn't go into any detail. And I was the target. It was very fascinating. And then when you've done something like that before and a similar situation arises, and not just with that, but with anything, how people react then impacts your thought process in, am I going to do this again? Am I going to say something? Or am I just going to mind my own damn business?
Yeah, you got the once bitten, twice shy.
Yes.
At the same time, it hasn't done a thing to change what your moral compass,
right,
what your values, your respect for other people that you care about.
Exactly.
It doesn't change that for one moment.
Right.
Wow. Okay. So we've talked about a number of scenarios here. And one of the ones, this almost falls into that conflict of interest a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
I'm thinking that where there are some interests that might conflict with maybe a responsibility that I have, or maybe we see it in the office environment or in the work environment a lot, where making decisions on contracts, for instance, that might benefit you or a family member. I think we've heard quite a bit about that in local government. Won't call out any particular individuals, but that whole notion about cooking the books, about being able to make commitments where benefit is going to go not necessarily to the right person for the job, but to the person who's right for this person who's making the decision. So thinking about where you might encounter conflicts of interest, both personally and professionally. One of the things you've talked about, and you've demonstrated with a number of your stories through these podcasts, has been this standing up for others.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a challenge. I just read a story the other day. I wish I could remember more details about it, where a young person was being bullied and another kid tried to intervene, and then the bullying turned on this other kid. And the initial person who was being bullied just got up and ran away. It was like, okay, you saved me, I'm out, and then left the secondary person who was now becoming a victim of bullying, just left them to defend their own self. And I thought, how interesting. Like, somebody intervened to help you, and you ran away instead of staying and trying to help or getting help or anything like that. It was interesting to me. But when you talk about that standing up for others, it can be hard because you might be putting yourself at risk. I remember years ago when I worked, well, I won't say where I worked, doesn't matter. But a group of us were going to a restaurant, and there was a domestic violence situation happening in the parking lot. And all the guys I was with went over there and got the man and held him down until the police came. And that woman was so grateful. She couldn't believe that anyone would intervene because other people had literally parked next to them, walked by them, and saw what he was doing to her. And the guys I worked with were like, no, we are not letting this happen. And so they intervened. And I will never forget that.
No.
And neither will she.
No, I'm certain of that. The notion of being able to witness something and be able to step up and say, no, not on my watch.
Yeah. It takes a lot of courage to be able to do that in a lot of situations. Sometimes it's really easy to just say, not now, not the right time and place, knock it off. Sometimes it's really easy. But sometimes it takes a great deal of courage and putting yourself at potential risk to stop the bullying and the harassment.
I've seen some scenes from John Quinones.
Oh, yeah.
Where he sets up a situation. It's
What Would You Do, I think is the name of the TV show. Yeah.
And you see the goodness of people who don't recognize that they're being set up in a particular situation. But I watch when he has these situations, and the actors who are a part of it, I cringe at the people who are being the bullies, the people who are being disrespectful. And the people who are playing those who are on the receiving end of that, it's just so compelling. And I think, how could anybody be like that? And yet they're taking this from real life.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But watching people stand up, watching young people stand up for old people.
Yeah.
Just so when we think about the opportunity to demonstrate integrity, wherever we might be, and we're seeing situations where standing up for someone else is a choice we get to make, what are you going to use to help that choice be made? What's going to be the scale that kind of weighs action or inaction? So if we've taken a look at some scenarios, as many people as may hear this, there are that many more scenarios that would be that could be discussed here. But being able to recognize through all of that when we may have, or somebody else may have, a lapse in integrity. And and being able to take responsibility for one's own actions. Maybe, how do we repair trust? How do we rebuild integrity after we do a misstep?
I think it's very similar to when we talked about violating boundaries. It's very similar, right? We have to acknowledge that we did it, whether I did it myself or acknowledge someone else did it. We've got to be able to acknowledge that there was a lapse in integrity, that it happened, and then recognize what impact did that have on me and on the people around me. I'm really big on what kind of impact am I having on others. So it's really important to not just acknowledge, oh, I had a lapse of integrity, but what does it mean? What's the potential lasting imprint of that lapse in integrity? And then obviously you got to take responsibility for it. So apologizing for it without justifying it or blaming someone else. I always hate when I hear somebody trying to apologize. Well, if I made you feel this way, clearly I feel this way. Or if this person wouldn't have done that, then I wouldn't have had my lapse of integrity. I wouldn't have a lapse of judgment if that person hadn't done it. So blaming other people, don't do that. Just own it. You have an opportunity to learn from something that you screwed up on, and it's okay. We all make mistakes.
Yes,
So
we are, after all, human.
own it.
Yep.
Own it, and apologize. Sincerely apologize.
And this is very much like what we were talking about in violating boundaries.
Yep.
It's the same thing. You demonstrate that you understand the impact that you had, as well a willingness to make amends.
Yes, absolutely.
And then you do that.
Yes.
You make amends.
Yeah.
And what's that going to look like? Is it going to be that you have steps to take, that you need to take in order to make this situation go away, mitigate the harm?
Right. It could be as easy as I forgive you, and it could be as complicated as the next 30 days of interactions you have with this person, you need to show up differently. You need to do some different things. So there might be some really specific words, actions, and behaviors that you need to demonstrate, or that you maybe have to let that person have access to certain things. I think about, I don't want to air anyone's dirty laundry, so I'm just going to keep this really generic, but I have a friend who had a spouse who cheated on her, but they worked through it. And so one of the things that he had to do was give her access to his phone. He hated every minute of it. But she was like, you started this relationship with text messages, so I want access to your phone for at least the next 30 to 60 days. And he was like, all right, if that's what it's going to take to re-earn your trust, you have access to my phone. So he was not allowed to change the code on his phone. And she had the right to go through his backpack to make sure he didn't have any extra phones. But it was some very clear things that they set up so that he could earn her trust back.
I'm thinking about it as parent and child, not that particular couple, but that notion that when a child violates the parent's trust.
Right.
Or the other way around.
Yeah.
So being able to say, okay, what is it that will help us repair the rift
And move forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is the whole point of it.
Exactly.
And then you learn from it.
Yes.
We keep talking about reflection. We keep talking about learning from the experiences we have, the things we do that we shouldn't, the things we should have done and didn't. I just said that. But you know what I mean. So
it's important when you reflect when there's a lapse of integrity is what caused it. What were the factors that were in play that caused you to violate your own code of ethics, your own internal operating system? And how do you prevent that from happening again? Or do you need to reevaluate your integrity, your operating system? Is there a core value that maybe shouldn't be a core value anymore? And it's okay. As long as it's not causing harm to people, right. It's okay. We learn and we grow, and our core values can ebb and flow a little bit as we learn more life lessons, and we might reprioritize our core values. I don't know if I said this earlier or not. For me, sometimes honesty and kindness can be conflicting core values. Mm-hmm. I feel like you can always be kind, and you can be honest and kind at the same time. But, sometimes a little white lie happens. How are you today? I'm fine. When I'm in the total shitter, I shouldn't swear on this because I keep saying it's a clean podcast.
We're human.
I'm having an awful day, but I'm telling you I'm fine because I don't want to talk about it or whatever. So, it's those little things that if I'm truly going to hold myself up to be 100% honest, then when somebody asks me how I am, I need to come up with a different phrase. So it's just those little things. So for me, I define honesty in a specific way. Right? And so when you think about reflecting on what caused a violation of integrity, what caused you to not demonstrate a core value that then had an impact on someone else or had a poor impact on yourself, what led up to it is really important to understand.
I think about part of the reflection and the learning for the situation you just reviewed, that I ask you how you're doing, and it isn't, I'm fine, but it is, I'm not having the best day, but I'm going to say I'm fine.
Yeah.
So you've got my truth and you've got my I'm just going to be okay.
Exactly.
All right? But I've revealed it to you. But you can come up as we learn these lessons, as we consider these things, as we reflect on how it went and what we would have changed, what we would have done differently or not done at all. It's about, instead of having to react to situations, we are prepared to respond to situations because we have studied it. It matters enough to us. We care enough about us and those around us to care to learn.
We've done the thought work.
Thought work. 2 words that just wrapped it all up. Thank you. But it's true. And if necessary, reach out. If there is an issue to be resolved, one of integrity and some trust that has been blown, you can reach out. It's not all on you. Reach out to a friend, to a counselor, to a community or church, whatever, a friend, a neighbor, the dog, just to be able to sit down and reflect on what went on and put yourself in a place where you can be aided in that reflection.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, it's really just trying to get back to that place of integrity, which I think is the most comfortable place to be. And so we're really trying just to return to that level of comfort and calm. It says, I know who I am. I know what matters to me. Mm-hmm. I know what I need to do about that.
Yep.
I know what to do if something doesn't go well. And I have the strength and the respect for myself and others to do that work.
It can be very chaotic when you live in a place where your integrity and your values are challenged on a daily basis. It's not fun.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. So what do?
We continue to live our lives with integrity, and we demonstrate that through our actions. And when there's been that breach or lapse of integrity, we want to just get back to the habits we have around our core values and our integrity. And remember that actions speak louder than words.
Indeed.
People show you who they are, and you show people who you are. I think the situations that we've talked about really show personal integrity, and that it can often require a choice between what is easy or beneficial to us in the short term and what is ethical or right in the longer term, and what kind of impact that has on us and how we live our lives and the people around us.
We all make mistakes.
Indeed.
What we're asking is for people to take advantage of those, to learn. Take the opportunity to learn from those mistakes. And you look at a lapse in integrity as, it's a chance to grow, to strengthen your character. and take what might have been a negative experience and turn it into something that is really a powerful moment of personal development. So
sounds like a wrap to me.
I'm Carla.
I'm DocShellie. Thanks for tuning in.
Till next time.
I think the situations that we've talked about really show personal integrity, and that it can often require a choice between what is easy or beneficial to us in the short term and what is ethical or right in the longer term, and what kind of impact that has on us and how we live our lives and the people around us.